The tags do not look like much. Thin rectangles where a paper sticker used to sit. Then the numbers change. Not overnight. Not after the night crew walks the bays with a pricing gun. In the aisle. Across a whole run of product at once. Milk. A bag of ice. A case of water after the temperature climbs. The shelf that looked like a promise an hour ago now posts a different one. This is not a cart on a website, refreshing while you hesitate. This is a grocery store. The last room most people still treat as a place where a price holds still long enough to plan a week. Kroger is installing digital shelf tags. The system carries a name that sounds like a vendor slide. Edge, Enhanced Display for Grocery Environment, built with Microsoft. The public pitch is labor saved, promotions flipped, waste trimmed, fewer wrong stickers. The capability underneath is older and colder. A posted number that can move with the clock, the weather, the inventory, the crush of people leaving work. The contradiction is simple enough for anyone who has ever written a list on the back of an envelope. Grocery shopping was supposed to be the market where the number on the shelf was the number.
Same for the person who comes at 10 in the morning and the person who comes at 5. Same on the Tuesday after payday and the Thursday before it. A digital tag does not have to honor that bargain. It can move. It does not follow that Kroger has ordered a company-wide surge on every gallon in every city. Capability is not a nationwide policy. Hold the gap. The story lives inside it. Because once the sticker can flicker, the object on the shelf stops being only a public fact. It becomes a lever. And a lever in a supermarket is aimed, whether anyone writes the aim on the press release, at willingness to pay. Heat on the parking lot. Ice melting faster. A number that can rise while your hand is still on the bag. That is the death of the fixed price. Not as a slogan, as a mechanism.
For most of commercial history, the price was not a fact on a wall. It was an argument. You asked, the merchant answered. You walked toward the door, the number moved. Information sat in the seller's mouth and in the buyer's patience, and the poor bargained from a weaker chair. A posted price was a social invention, not a law of nature. In the 19th century, American dry goods houses and department stores began to kill the argument on purpose. One price, marked, identical for the woman in the good coat and the woman who was not. Philadelphia's John Wanamaker made the one-price policy a moral advertisement as much as an operational one. The store would not measure your desperation in real time. Variety chains and later supermarkets inherited the habit. The little rectangle of paper became a civic object. You could compare, you could budget. You could send a child with a list and a folded bill and expect the arithmetic to survive the trip. The barcode locked that public number into a machine. In 1974, at a Marsh supermarket in Troy, Ohio, a pack of Wrigley's gum crossed a laser and became a line in a file. From that decade forward, the back room knew what left the building.
The front room still showed a sticker that a human being had to print, walk, and press into plastic. That friction was not a bug in the old system. It was a governor. Changing thousands of items by hand cost wages, mistakes, and time. Prices could move on Tuesday. They could not economically twitch at 4:12 p.m. because a storm cell crossed the county. Airlines learned a different lesson in the 1980s. Yield management treated a seat as a melting cube of inventory. Hotels followed, then ride-hail, then the open web. Amazon taught a generation that the number beside a toaster is a weather system. Grocery resisted, not from virtue, from physics. Food is local, perishable, heavy, and bought on a weekly ritual. A store that jerked the milk price around trained customers to distrust the aisle and to drive 5 extra minutes to a rival who still looked stable. Reputation was part of the margin. Then the paper governor met 2 pressures at once. First, the labor inside the store got expensive relative to a radio-linked screen. Europe adopted electronic shelf labels years earlier, in part because night crews reprinting stickers were a visible cost.
Second, food at home inflation in the United States ran into double digits in 2022. Shoppers remember the receipt. Chains remember something else. Grocery net margins often live in a band of roughly 1 to 3%. A few points of shrink, a missed promotion, a warehouse delay, and the year disappears. When wholesale costs jump, the old toolkit is blunt. Raise the sticker and hope the customer does not leave, or hold the sticker and bleed. A screen on the shelf offers a finer blade. Update the bay in minutes, match a local shortage, kill a dead promotion at noon instead of at dawn, recover a sliver on the hours when the parking lot is full. None of that requires a villain in a boardroom. It requires a cost structure that already treats 0.1% as oxygen. What most people miss is that the fixed grocery price was never a law. It was a technology constraint wearing the costume of fairness. Remove the constraint, and the costume becomes optional. The contradiction from the aisle returns here, in history rather than in hardware. The public number survived because it was expensive to assassinate.
Make the assassination cheap, and the century of the paper tag starts to look like an intermission.
Follow the firm that can put the screen on 60 feet of dairy and still call itself a neighborhood store. Kroger is headquartered in Cincinnati. Rodney McMullen sits at the top of a chain that runs thousands of banners and stores across much of the country. The company already lives on 2 ledgers at once. One is milk, meat, and pharmacy. The other is data. A loyalty card turns a trip into a panel study. Kroger Precision Marketing sells that attention to the manufacturers who pay to win the end cap. The shopper thinks she is buying cereal. The store is also selling the fact that she buys cereal. Microsoft arrives as infrastructure, not as a grocer. Cloud, identity, a stack that can push a new number to a bay and log what happened next. Edge is the visible edge of that stack, a display that can carry a price, a promo, a brand message, a warning about stock. For Cincinnati, the motive is not mystery. Paper tags waste hours. Wrong tags create legal risk. Digital tags promise a cleaner file between the price in the server and the price the inspector sees. They also promise a store that can behave a little more like a website without admitting it has become one. In August 2024, a different set of incentives walks through the door. Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bob Casey send a formal inquiry to McMullen. The letter is not a verdict, it is a demand for the mechanism. How will the tags be used? What rules, if any, bind a change triggered by time of day, local demand, or weather? What, if anything, links cameras and identity to the number a particular person sees? The senators write from a consumer protection posture. A price that moves inside a physical aisle can punish the household that cannot shop at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday. A price that could, in principle, notice a face is a different animal entirely. Kroger's public framing in the period around the inquiry treats the hardware as an accuracy and labor tool rather than as a declared surge regime. That framing is a motive too. Trust is an asset in grocery. A chain that looks like a ride-hail app in the dairy case hands its rivals a commercial. Now place the third character in the bay, the afternoon shopper. She is not a persona from a consultant deck. She is the nurse off shift, the warehouse picker, the parent whose only free hour starts when school ends. Her willingness to pay is higher because her time is already spent. She cannot easily arbitrage the morning. The old paper tag could not reach into that constraint. The new tag can, if anyone chooses to let it. Cincinnati wants a tighter store. The senators want a visible rulebook. The shopper wants a number she can believe before she leaves the house. Those 3 wants do not fit on one screen. Economists have a name for the dream the hardware finally makes cheap: first-degree price discrimination. Arthur Pigou mapped the degrees more than a century ago. In the pure case, the seller charges each person their reservation price, the last dollar they would still pay. No surplus left on the table, no shared number, only a private extraction, perfectly fitted. Real markets almost never get there. They settle for cruder cuts: student discounts, coupons, regional zones, airline fences that separate the Tuesday meeting from the Saturday wedding. That is third-degree thinking, grouped by a visible trait. Second-degree thinking lets customers sort themselves with quantity and version. A posted sticker in a supermarket was, for decades, a refusal of the dream. Everyone in the bay saw the same digits. Discrimination, when it happened, hid in circulars and card offers, not in the object at eye level.
Electronic shelf labels reopen the latter. The first and most operational step is not a camera. It is time. A store can post one price at mid-morning when the aisle is a few retirees and a delivery driver, and another after the office lot's empty. Inventory can join the function.
A storm forecast can join it. A local event can join it. The people standing in the bay still share a number in that minute. The public fact survives, but it becomes a short-lived public fact. The weekly budget, which is a plan across hours, starts to rot. That is the mechanism that should be kept cleanly separate from the sci-fi version. A label on a shelf by itself is a broadcast. It does not know your name. Personalized pricing of the first-degree kind needs a second pipe, a logged-in app, a loyalty identifier at a digital cart, a camera system that can bind a face to a file. The August inquiry treats that second pipe as a live risk, not as a proven nationwide practice. Warren and Casey ask about surge-style movement and about facial recognition-based personalization because the stack can be wired that way. Two independent accounts of the same letter, the Senate press release and the Bloomberg report, document the ask. They do not document a completed installation of face-priced milk. Preserve the qualifier as if it were part of the hardware. Kroger has not been shown, in those records, to have implemented a company-wide surge policy.
The inquiry is about capability and about the absence of a transparent trigger list. Capability is already an economic fact. Markets price options. A tool that can move 10,000 stickers before the soup boils changes the bargaining position of everyone who cannot see the rulebook. Watch the afternoon more closely. Peak hours in a supermarket are not a metaphor. They are a queue at the hot bar, a thinner milk case, a parking lot that forces a second loop. High-income shoppers can shift. They can send a courier, they can order a window. Low-income shoppers are overrepresented in rigid schedules and underrepresented in spare time. If the function raises prices when flexibility is scarcest, the store has not discovered a neutral efficiency. It has found a way to bill people for the crime of having a job that ends at 5. The weekly envelope economy depends on a number that exists before the trip. Dynamic tags make the envelope a rumor. Labor feels a different edge. The night crew that used to walk the bays with printed sheets loses a task, and in some models, a reason to staff the hour. Accuracy rises. So does the store's ability to run promotions like a media network. A brand can buy the screen, not just the palette. Suppliers who once fought for a static end cap now fight for a rotating slot in a system that can unpublish them at 2 p.m. Competitors face a race. Once one large banner can retune an aisle in minutes, a rival still dependent on paper looks slow, then looks expensive, then looks like a target. Legal and reputational barriers still stand. Grocery is a high-frequency relationship. Customers forgive a lot of shrinkflation if the ritual feels stable. They forgive less if they watch a number climb while they hold the jug. State attorneys general already treat deceptive price displays as a usable statute. A tag that disagrees with the register is an old problem. A tag that agrees with the register and disagrees with the shopper's memory of an hour ago is a new one. The senator's letter is an attempt to pull that new problem into daylight before custom hardens around it. Inside the firm, the conflict is not a cartoon of greed versus innocence. Merchants want less waste on perishable freight. Finance wants the slivers that inflation stole.
The retail media team wants a surface that can sell ads without looking like a casino. Counsel wants a memo that says the company did not do the thing the headline will someday claim. Those memos can be true in the narrow sense and still leave the wound open. If the trigger logic is unpublished, the customer cannot audit the aisle. If the trigger logic is published, rivals can copy it and activists can campaign against it. Opacity is a strategy. Transparency is a strategy. Both are expensive. The climax is quiet. No siren. A software job completes. A bay of labels redraws. A person who came for a known price discovers that the known price was a moment, not a rule. The store has not announced that it has become Uber. It has only removed the last cheap reason not to. And the people with the least slack in their day are the ones who will learn the new grammar first because they cannot shop around it. A price is supposed to be information, That is the textbook mercy. It tells farmers what to plant, trucks where to drive, households what to skip. The public sticker in a supermarket was a rough, democratic version of that signal. Imperfect, late, sometimes dishonest in the fine print, but shared. You and the stranger at the same cooler stood inside one fact. The hardware on the shelf does not abolish information. It privatizes the clock that governs it. The signal still exists. It just stops being a civic object and becomes a timed instrument. Once that happens, the old moral advertisement of the one-price store flips inside out. The merchant is no longer promising not to measure your desperation in real time. The merchant is building a room in which desperation, if it arrives on a schedule, can be metered. This is the weird rationality the aisle was hiding. Thin margins make a moving sticker look like hygiene. Loyalty files make a moving sticker look like personalization. A software partner makes a moving sticker look like modernization. Each piece is defensible in a quarterly meeting.
Stacked, they reconstruct a market that predated the paper tag, a negotiation, except the customer no longer knows a negotiation has started, and only one side can see the reservation price. The damage, if the option is used without a public rule, will not arrive as a single scandal. It will arrive as 1,000 small failures of planning, a list that no longer adds up, a bus trip that lands in the expensive hour, a parent who learns too late that predictability was a benefit the store had been giving away and has decided to sell back. Workers who lose the dull task of hanging stickers may also lose the dull hour that paid rent. Suppliers will buy access to a screen that can vanish. Rivals will copy the stack because standing still becomes a cost. None of that is fate. A chain can bind the tool to labor savings and leave the clock alone. A legislature can force a log of every change. A shopper base can punish a flicker. Options cut both ways. What cannot be restored cheaply is the innocence of the rectangle. People now know the number can move while they are in the building. Knowledge like that does not return to the package. Picture the cooler at closing. The lights go harder.
The last carts rattle. The labels hold a set of digits that will not necessarily be there at dawn. Somewhere, a server treats that fact as routine. Somewhere, a household treats that fact as a broken instrument. The shared number was a small piece. What happens to a neighborhood when even the milk price refuses to be a neighbor?